My family sold my childhood home while I was deployed overseas, and they were already celebrating the closing money when I walked into the title office in uniform and asked why my name was still on the deed. The room went quiet in that strange professional way, the way people go quiet when they know a mistake has stopped being a mistake and started becoming evidence. My mother had one hand on a folder of closing papers. My father was holding the pen. My older brother, Grant, was leaning back in the leather chair like the money was already sitting in his account. The buyer's agent was smiling politely. The title attorney was halfway through explaining where everyone needed to sign. Then I stepped through the glass door with dust still on my boots from the airfield, a certified copy of the deed in my left hand, and my deployment orders in my right. My mother looked at me like she had seen a ghost she had personally mailed overseas. "Lena," she whispered, "you're not supposed to be here." That was the first honest thing she had said to me in 20 years. My name is Lena Whitaker. I am 32 years old. I serve as a logistics officer in the Army Reserve, and for most of my adult life, my family treated my uniform like a useful decoration. They liked it in photographs. They liked mentioning it at church dinners. They liked saying their daughter served her country when it made them look patriotic. What they did not like was the part where service made me disciplined, documented, and very hard to intimidate. I grew up in a white farmhouse outside Asheville, North Carolina. It had a green roof, a crooked porch, and a huge maple tree in the front yard that turned bright red every October. My grandmother Evelyn bought that house in 1969 after my grandfather died. She raised my father there, then let my parents move in after they married because my dad's construction business never quite became the success story he promised everyone it would be. Grandma Evelyn was the only person in that house who ever saw me clearly. My parents had 2 children. Grant came first, golden, loud, confident, and excused before he was even accused. I came 5 years later, quiet, serious, and expected to understand. If Grant crashed a 4-wheeler, he was spirited. If I forgot to wash one pan, I was ungrateful. If Grant failed a class, the teacher was against him. If I got an A, my mother asked why it was not an A+. The house had 4 bedrooms. Grant had the largest after my parents. I had the little room over the back porch that froze in winter and baked in summer. Grandma Evelyn used to knock on my door with a mug of cocoa and say, "Rooms don't make a person small, Lena. People try. Rooms don't." She taught me how to balance a checkbook before I learned to drive. She taught me how to read a deed, how to save receipts, how to make copies of anything important, and keep one copy where angry people cannot reach it. When I was 16, she took me to the county recorder's office and showed me the deed to the farmhouse. "Names on paper matter," she said. "Families forget promises when money gets loud. Paper remembers." I did not understand then why her voice sounded so heavy. I would later. When Grandma Evelyn died, I was 22 and finishing basic officer training. I came home for the funeral in my dress uniform. Grant showed up lit, wearing sunglasses, and asked after the service whether anyone knew what would happen to the house. My mother slapped his arm and whispered, "Not here," but she did not look shocked. She looked annoyed that he had said it too soon. The will was read a week later in a small attorney's office that smelled like dust and lemon cleaner. My father expected the farmhouse to go to him. My mother expected the same. Grant expected whatever my parents expected, plus a little extra for himself. Grandma Evelyn did something different. She left my parents a life estate, meaning they could live in the farmhouse for the rest of their lives. They could not mortgage it. They could not sell it. They could not transfer it. The remainder interest, the actual ownership waiting underneath that life estate, went to me. The deed had already been prepared and recorded before she died. My father went red. My mother went silent. Grant laughed once and said, "That can't be right." The attorney turned the page around and pointed to the county stamp. It was right. Grandma had left me a letter too. It said, "You are the one who will keep the house from becoming a rescue boat for people who keep drilling holes in it." I folded that letter and put it in the inner pocket of my uniform jacket. I have it still. My parents never forgave me for being named on that deed, even though I did not ask for it, even though I was not allowed to sell the place out from under them, even though all I received at 22 was responsibility and future trouble. In their minds, I had taken something from them simply by being chosen. Grant took it the hardest because Grant had already mentally spent the house. He had plans for that money. There was always a plan with Grant: a landscaping company, a hunting lodge, a mobile detailing business, a food truck he bought without knowing how to cook. Each dream came with a logo, a loan, and a collapse. Each collapse ended with my parents bailing him out because family helps family. When I asked why family never helped me with tuition, my mother said, "You're independent. You don't need us the way Grant does." That sentence became the family's permission slip to take from me without guilt. If I struggled, I was strong. If Grant struggled, he was wounded. If I succeeded, it meant I could spare more. If he failed, it meant someone had to save him. So I built a life that did not require their rescue. I joined the Army Reserve. I worked logistics for a medical supply company. I paid my loans. I rented small apartments. I saved money. I visited the farmhouse mostly for Grandma's grave and the maple tree, not for the people inside. Every time I came home, something was missing from the house. First Grandma's silver tea set, then the old tractor, then the handmade quilts. My mother always had explanations: storage, repairs. Grant needed a little help. The house itself still stood, but it was being emptied of memory one quiet sale at a time. The first serious warning came 6 months before my deployment. I was home for a long weekend helping replace the porch rail because my father had ignored rot until it became dangerous. Grant arrived in a new truck with temporary tags and a smile too big for his finances. He walked the property line with his phone out, filming the barn, the pasture, the house. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Just thinking," he said. "About what?" He grinned. "Potential." That night I heard my parents arguing in the kitchen. My mother said, "If Lena would just sign, we could fix everything." My father said, "She won't." Grant said, "Then don't ask her like it's optional." I stood in the hallway barefoot, holding a glass of water, and felt the old training rise in me. Listen, do not react. Document later. The next morning I called the attorney who had handled Grandma's estate. He had retired, but his daughter, Mara Ellis, had taken over the practice. Mara was sharp, direct, and allergic to family nonsense. She pulled the property record and confirmed what I already knew. My parents had a life estate. I held the remainder. No sale could close without my consent. Could they forge it? I asked. There was a pause. "People can forge anything," she said. "Whether it survives scrutiny is another matter. Are you worried?" "Yes." Then we prepare like worried people with brains. That was how I learned about county property alerts. Title monitoring and military legal protections I should have known earlier. Mara helped me sign up for every alert the county offered. She filed a notarized notice of military service connected to my property interest. She scanned Grandma's will, the deed, my birth certificate, my signatures, and the life estate documents into a secure folder. She also told me something that stayed with me. Your family may think deployment makes you unreachable. It actually gives you a paper trail most civilians can't fake. 3 months later, I deployed to Poland with a logistics unit supporting medical supply movement across NATO training sites. It was not the dramatic kind of deployment people imagine in movies, but it was real. Long hours, cold mornings, bad coffee, time zones that made every call home feel like it happened underwater. My mother suddenly called more during that deployment than she had in the previous 5 years. At first, she was sweet. Too sweet. "How are you sleeping, honey? Do you need anything? Your father misses you. Grant has been asking about you." Grant had not asked about me unless he needed something since I was 12. Then the questions changed. "Do you still use the same signature? Where do you keep your important papers while you're overseas? If something happened to you, who would handle your affairs? Did the Army make you sign a power of attorney?" I answered like I had learned to answer in briefings, politely, vaguely, and never with useful information. "Yes, the Army handles documents carefully. Mara has what she needs. Everything important is protected." My mother hated that last word. Protected. In January, Mara emailed me at 2:13 a.m. my time subject. "Call me when awake." No greeting. No explanation. I called from a hallway outside the operations room while snow pushed against the windows. "Lena," she said, "your parents listed the farmhouse." For a second, I heard nothing. Not the building ventilation. Not distant footsteps. not my own breathing. They what? There is a real estate listing. It went live yesterday. The description says full ownership, clean title, immediate possession at closing. Immediate possession? They have a life estate. I know. They can't sell full ownership. I know. Did they use my name? Not on the listing. But the agent's packet claims you signed a limited military power of attorney authorizing your father to sign closing documents on your behalf. I leaned against the wall. I signed no such thing. I know that too. Her voice was calm, which helped. Anger would have scared me. Calm meant there was a plan. What do we do? I asked. We let them get further. I hated that answer. Mara explained that suspicion was not enough. A listing could be a misunderstanding. A forged power of attorney could be an attempted fraud, but if they withdrew it, they could deny intent. If they brought it to closing and tried to use it to transfer my property interest while I was deployed, that became something much harder to soften into family drama, so we collected evidence. Mara requested the agent packet through a title contact. The power of attorney was a bad fake. It used my full legal name but the wrong unit address. It had a signature that looked copied from an old birthday card. The notary stamp belonged to a woman in my hometown who had notarized documents for my father's construction business for years. Mara sent it to me securely. I stared at my forged name for a long time. It is a strange thing to see your name written by someone who wants to remove you. It feels like watching a stranger wear your face. The listing moved fast because the market was hot and the farmhouse was beautiful, in the way old houses become beautiful when buyers can imagine themselves rescuing them. Within 2 weeks, there was an offer. Cash. A couple from Charlotte wanted to turn it into a bed and breakfast. My parents accepted. Grant texted me the next day for the first time in months. Hope deployment is treating you good. Mom said you're being mature about the house. Proud of you. I screenshotted it, mature. In my family, mature meant quiet while someone took from you. Then my mother called. We found buyers, she said, breathless with fake gentleness. It's bittersweet, but it's time. The house is too much for us. You're selling Grandma's house? Don't sound like that, Lena. You knew this day would come. No, I didn't. Well, your father handled the paperwork. You don't need to worry about anything from overseas. There it was. Mom, I said. What paperwork? She sighed. Please don't start. You authorized it months ago. Did I? Another pause. Lena, don't make this ugly. That was when I knew she was involved. My mother had always treated truth like a guest she could ask to leave if it made dinner uncomfortable. I said, I hope you kept copies. Then I hung up. For the next month, I became two people. Captain Lena Whitaker handled medical supply schedules, customs forms, inventory shortages, and fuel delays in a frozen country 6,000 miles from home. The other Lena built a case between midnight and dawn. Mara collected title emails. I gathered deployment records proving where I was when the fake document was supposedly signed. My commander wrote a memo confirming I had not been in the United States on the date of the notarization. The base legal office authenticated my orders. The Army notary reviewed the fake document and nearly laughed at how wrong it was. Then came the closing date. March 18th, Mara forwarded the notice. They think you're overseas, she said. I am overseas. Not on March 18th, you won't be. My unit had already approved mid-tour leave for a medical follow-up in the States. My family did not know. Mara changed my return flight, so I landed in Charlotte the night before the closing. My commander signed off. I packed my dress uniform, Grandma's letter, and every certified document Mara told me to bring. On the flight home, I did not sleep. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I pulled out my phone and read Grandma's letter again from a photo. Families forget promises when money gets loud. Paper remembers. I landed at 10:40 p.m. Mara picked me up herself because she did not trust me not to drive while shaking. She handed me a folder thick enough to look like a college textbook. What's in here? I asked. The end of their story. At 9:15 the next morning, we parked across from the title company in downtown Asheville. The building had glass doors, a polished lobby, and potted plants that looked too expensive to be real. I could see Grant's truck in the lot, my parents' sedan, the buyer's car. Everyone was inside, sitting around a table, preparing to sell a house they had no right to sell. For a moment, I felt 13 years old again, standing in Grandma's hallway while my mother told me not to be difficult. My hand tightened around the folder. Mara looked at me. You ready? No. Good. Ready is overrated. Documented is better. We walked in. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? Mara handed her a card. We're here for the Whitaker closing. Oh, they're already in conference room 2. I know. The door to conference room 2 was half open. I heard my brother's voice first. Once this clears, I can pay back the hard money guys and still have enough to restart clean. Hard money guys. My parents were not selling because the house was too much. They were selling because Grant had found a more dangerous kind of debt. The title attorney said, "We just need Mr. Whitaker's signature here as attorney in fact for Lena Whitaker. Then we can move forward." That was my cue. I pushed the door open. The room froze. My mother's face lost color so quickly it was almost impressive. My father dropped the pen. Grant sat upright, like someone had yanked a wire in his spine. "Lena," my mother whispered, "you're not supposed to be here." I stepped inside. "I know." The buyer, a woman in a cream blazer, looked from me to the folder in my hand. Her husband frowned. Their agent stopped smiling. The title attorney, Mr. Blevins, stood. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Captain Lena Whitaker, remainder owner of the property you are attempting to close." Mara stepped beside me, and I am her attorney. No one spoke. I placed the certified deed on the table. Before anyone signs another document, I would like to know why my father is about to sign my name with a forged power of attorney while I am on active military orders. The buyer's wife gasped softly. Grant said, "Oh, come on." Mara turned to him. "Do not." There was something in her voice that made even Grant shut his mouth. Mr. Blevins reached for the fake power of attorney in his file. "We were provided this document." "I know," I said. "It's fake." My father finally spoke. "Lena, this is a misunderstanding." "No, Dad. A misunderstanding is when someone parks in the wrong driveway. This is a notarized lie." My mother's eyes filled with tears on command. "We were going to tell you." "You told me I authorized it. You were overseas. We didn't want to burden you." I looked at her. "You tried to sell my legal interest in Grandma's house while I was serving overseas because you thought distance would make me easy to erase." The title attorney sat down slowly. He knew. Everyone at that table knew the transaction had just died. Grant slammed his hand on the table. "You don't even live there. You left. We stayed. We took care of the place." I turned to him. "You sold the tractor, the quilts, Grandma's tea set, and half the barn wood. Do not call that care." His mouth twisted. This family needed help. This family needed accountability. My father whispered, "Grant owes people." I heard. My mother snapped then, the tears vanishing. "He could lose everything." I laughed once, not because it was funny, because there was the family motto again, dressed in panic. Grant might lose everything, so Lena must give up something. "No," I said. "He could face the consequences of borrowing money he had no way to repay." My mother looked at the buyers. "This is private family business." The buyer's wife stood. "No, ma'am, this is almost my business." "You nearly sold us a lawsuit." That might have been my favorite sentence of the day. Mara laid out the documents one by one. My certified deed, the life estate, my deployment orders, the commander's memo, the forged power of attorney, the notary stamp, the property alert, the text messages, Grant's message about me being mature, my mother's call summary. Each page landed on the table like a brick. Mr. Blevins asked my father, "Did Captain Whitaker appear before this notary?" My father stared at the table. "Dad," I said, "careful. You're about to choose whether this room hears one lie or all of them." He closed his eyes. "No," he said. My mother hissed, "Leonard." He opened his eyes and looked at her with a tiredness I had never seen before. No, she did not. The room shifted. The lie had cracked from the inside. Grant stood so quickly, his chair hit the wall. "You're going to ruin me over a house you don't even use?" I looked at him, and suddenly I was not in the title office. I was 16 again, watching Grandma point to the county stamp. Names on paper matter. "It was never just a house," I said. "It was the one promise in this family that had my name on it." The title attorney canceled the closing immediately. The buyers walked out furious. Their agent followed, already calling someone. Mr. Blevins said he would be obligated to report the suspected fraud to his underwriter and possibly law enforcement. Mara said, Already done. My mother looked at me. What did you do? I did not answer right away. Then the conference room door opened again. A county investigator stepped in with 2 uniformed officers. Grant said, "You called the police?" "No," I said. "I called my lawyer." "She called the police." That distinction seemed to offend him more. The investigator asked my father, mother, and Grant to remain seated. He collected the original fake power of attorney from Mr. Blevins. He asked who had delivered it. The title attorney said it came through Grant by email and through my father in paper form. He asked who arranged the notary. My father did not answer. My mother did. Leonard handled it. My father looked at her, and something broke in his face. For 30 years he had let her manage the family story. That morning he finally saw that she would feed him to it. "No," he said quietly. Grant brought the notary. Bridget knew. We all knew Lena hadn't signed. My mother's mouth opened. Grant shouted, "Dad!" But my father kept going. I told them it was wrong. I still went along with it. That's on me. I did not feel triumph. I felt a sad, heavy confirmation. They had all known. The investigator turned to me. "Captain Whitaker, did you give anyone permission to sign on your behalf?" "No." "Did you sign this power of attorney?" "No." "Were you in the United States on the date it was notarized?" I handed him my orders. "No." He nodded. Grant was arrested first because his name was on the emails and because the fake document had been sent from his account. My father was not cuffed then, but he was told charges could follow. My mother kept saying, "This is a family matter," until one of the officers said, "Ma'am, forgery is not a family matter." I think that was when she finally understood the room had stopped obeying her. As they led Grant out, he turned back to me and spat. "Grandma made a mistake choosing you." I held his gaze. No, she predicted this. That shut him up. The story did not end at the title office, of course. Stories like this have paperwork after the climax. There were interviews, affidavits, forensic signature comparisons, notary investigations, bank subpoenas, and more phone calls than I can count. The notary admitted Grant had brought the document and claimed I had signed it earlier because I was too busy with military stuff to appear. She stamped it anyway. She lost her commission before the criminal case even finished. Grant took a plea 6 months later for forgery, attempted fraud, and conspiracy connected to the sale. He avoided prison because it was his first felony conviction, but he got probation, restitution, and a record that made his restart clean fantasy impossible. My father accepted a lesser plea for his role and wrote me a letter I did not answer for 3 months. My mother was not charged. There was not enough direct evidence beyond everyone's statements, and Grant refused to put more on her once his lawyer got involved. But not charged is not the same as innocent. The sale was voided before it could happen. The property record was corrected. Mara filed additional protections on the deed. I terminated my parents' life estate through a civil action based on waste, fraud, and attempted illegal transfer. That took longer, but we won. The farmhouse became mine fully, not someday. Now my parents had to leave. People ask if I felt guilty about that. I will tell you the truth. Some days, yes, not because I thought I was wrong, but because daughters are trained to confuse guilt with proof of wrongdoing. I had to learn that guilt can be a bruise, not a compass. The day my parents moved out, I stood under the maple tree and watched movers carry boxes from the only house I had ever known. My mother would not look at me. My father did. "I'm sorry," he said. "For which part?" I asked. He looked down. "All of it." That was too big and too late, but it was finally shaped like truth. My mother stopped beside the porch. "You got what you wanted." I looked at the house. Peeling paint, sagging porch, empty rooms. Grandma's maple tree dropping red leaves over the yard. "No," I said. "I kept what Grandma wanted protected." She laughed bitterly. "Enjoy being alone in it." That was the last thing she said to me for almost a year. The first night after the failed closing, I slept in a hotel instead of the farmhouse. That sounds strange, considering I had just protected the house, but I could not walk through those rooms yet. My parents were still living there. The maple tree was still standing outside the window. Grandma's sewing basket was probably still in the upstairs closet if my mother had not sold it. Every part of the place was mine on paper and dangerous in memory. Mara ordered room service because she said I looked like a person who would forget hunger out of principle. We sat at a small hotel table with 2 bowls of soup between us, and she walked me through the next steps. Criminal investigation, civil petition, emergency injunction, a notice filed against the property to make sure no new document could be recorded without challenge. She used practical words, and I clung to them. Practical words saved me more than comforting ones. Comfort would have asked how I felt. Practical said, sign here, initial there, drink water, sleep. At midnight, my father called. I watched his name glow on the screen and let it ring out. Then my mother called. Then Grant's wife, who had not spoken to me in 3 years, sent a message that said, "You have no idea what you just did to our family." I typed one reply and sent it to all 3 of them. All communication goes through Mara. Then I turned the phone off. The next morning, I drove to the farmhouse with Mara and a sheriff's deputy. My parents were allowed to stay temporarily while the court sorted the life estate issue, but we needed to inventory the house because the civil claim included waste and missing property. My mother opened the door wearing a cardigan and martyrdom. My father stood behind her, smaller than I remembered from the title office. Neither of them looked at the deputy. They looked at me. "You brought law enforcement to your grandmother's house?" my mother asked. "No," I said. "You brought law enforcement to my grandmother's house when you forged my name." The deputy coughed once into his hand. Mara wrote something down. My mother's mouth tightened. We walked room by room. The dining room table was gone. Grandma's table, the one with burn marks from Thanksgiving candles, and a scratch where I had done homework at 12, had been sold to a dealer. The quilt rack was empty. The brass bed from the guest room was gone. Even the old jars of buttons in the sewing room had disappeared. "Storage," my mother said before I asked. "Where?" Mara asked. My mother did not answer. In the pantry I found Grandma's recipe box behind a stack of expired soup cans. I opened it and saw her handwriting on faded cards. Cornbread, apple stack cake, chicken and dumplings, peach preserves. My hands shook then, not in anger, but in relief. They had sold furniture and tools, but they had missed the small paper heart of the house. I put the recipe box in my bag. My mother saw me and snapped, "That belongs to the family." I looked at her. Then it is finally with someone who knows what that word means. That was the first time I saw my father flinch at something I said to her. The court process was slower than the title office drama. Viral stories make justice look instant. Real justice emails you forms with bad formatting and asks for 3 certified copies by Friday. Mara filed an emergency petition to prevent further transfer, sale, waste, or removal of property. The judge granted a temporary order. My parents were told not to remove anything else from the farmhouse. Grant was ordered to stay away from the property entirely. He violated that order 9 days later. A neighbor named Mrs. Dillard called me at 6:18 in the morning. She was 74, nosy in the most useful way, and had known Grandma Evelyn for 40 years. "Honey," she said, "your brother is at the barn." I drove over with the deputy on speaker. Grant had backed his truck up to the barn and was loading antique lumber into the bed. When I arrived, he was holding a crowbar and sweating through his shirt. "What are you doing?" I asked. He laughed like I was stupid. "Getting my stuff. The court order says you are not allowed here. This barn is family property." "No, this barn is evidence." That word changed his face. Evidence. People like Grant understand ownership only when someone else's authority is attached to it. The deputy arrived 12 minutes later. Grant shouted that I had always been jealous, that Grandma had poisoned me, that I was using the army to act superior. But he unloaded the lumber. Mrs. Dillard watched from her porch in a pink robe and slippers. When Grant drove away, she crossed the yard and hugged me without asking. She smelled like lavender soap and coffee. "Your grandma knew," she said. "Knew what?" "That one day they'd try something stupid. She told me, if they ever come for that house, Lena better have more paper than feelings." I laughed and cried at the same time. "That sounds like her." Mrs. Dillard patted my back. "She loved you like a locked safe, child. Quiet but serious." That sentence stayed with me. The first hearing was 3 weeks later. I wore my uniform because Mara told me not to, which meant I absolutely did, not as a costume. Not for sympathy, because my family had used my deployment as part of the crime. The uniform belonged in the room. My mother arrived dressed for church. My father looked exhausted. Grant came with an attorney who had clearly told him not to speak. Grant looked like silence physically hurt him. Mara presented the timeline. Grandma's will, recorded deed, life estate, my deployment, fake power of attorney, listing, closing attempt, law enforcement report, missing property inventory, Grant's barn violation. Each fact was clean. Each fact had a date. My parents' attorney tried to frame it as confusion over estate rights. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker believed, perhaps incorrectly, that their life estate gave them authority to manage the property disposition for family necessity. The judge looked over her glasses. Family necessity does not create a signature. I wanted to stand and applaud. I did not. Mara's foot pressed mine under the table, a silent warning not to smile too visibly. My father was asked whether he believed I had signed the power of attorney. He looked at my mother first. Then he looked at me. No, he said. My mother closed her eyes. The judge ordered the life estate issue to proceed to a full civil review and left the emergency restrictions in place. It was not a final win, but it was the kind of win that changes the air. My parents walked out without speaking to me. Grant did not look at me at all. That was fine. I had spent years wanting them to look at me. By then, I wanted only the record to look at the truth. During those months, I returned to my unit, finished the deployment, and carried the farmhouse case in a folder that traveled with me from office to barracks to aircraft. Sometimes, at 2 a.m., I would open the scanned deed and stare at my name. It steadied me. Not because property makes a person whole, but because someone who loved me had put protection into a system that could outlive her voice. Grandma could not stand in the title office with me. Her paper did. When I came back from deployment for good, the farmhouse looked worse than before. My parents had stopped pretending to care for it. The grass was high. The porch paint had peeled. The green roof needed repair. The maple tree was healthy, though strong as ever. That felt like an instruction. The final civil hearing happened in late September. Mara argued that my parents had violated the terms of the life estate by attempting fraudulent transfer, permitting waste, and removing property. My father's testimony mattered. He admitted they knew they could not sell without me. He admitted Grant pressured them. He admitted my mother found the old birthday card with my signature. He admitted the notary did not witness me sign. He admitted he had been afraid Grant would be hurt by the people he owed. Then Mara asked him, "Were you afraid Lena would be hurt?" My father did not answer quickly. "No," he said finally. "I thought she could handle it." There it was again, the family's oldest cruelty in its cleanest form. Lena can handle it. Mara let the silence sit until even the judge seemed to feel it. Then she said, "Captain Whitaker's ability to survive harm is not legal consent to inflict it." I wrote that sentence down later and kept it. The judge terminated the life estate. It was not a punishment, she said. It was a remedy. My parents had attempted to destroy the very property interest the life estate was supposed to preserve. They were given 60 days to vacate. My mother cried in court. My father stared at his hands. Grant was not present because his criminal attorney had finally convinced him absence was safer than contempt. I walked outside afterward and sat on the courthouse steps. Mara sat beside me. "You won," she said. "I feel sick." Winning means the bleeding stopped. It does not mean the wound vanished. I looked at the traffic passing below the courthouse. What kind of daughter removes her parents from their home? Mara did not soften her answer. The kind whose parents tried to steal hers. I needed to hear it that plainly. The criminal case finished before Christmas. Grant took the plea. The notary took a plea too. My father accepted responsibility for signing and presenting documents he knew were false. He did community service, probation, and a fine that hurt but did not destroy him. My mother walked away legally untouched, which might sound like victory to her. It was not. By then, the whole town knew enough. People at church had read the court summaries. Neighbors had seen the sheriff. The family story she had controlled for decades no longer moved cleanly through rooms. She could not call me dramatic anymore without someone asking, "But didn't they forge her name?" That was the justice she hated most. Not court. Not loss of the house. Doubt. She had lost control of the room. When they moved into a small rental 2 towns away, my father sent the first letter, "Lena, I do not know how to ask forgiveness from someone I taught to stop asking anything from me." Your grandmother trusted you because she knew you would protect what she built. I should have protected you. I did not. I protected Grant from consequences and your mother from grief, and I called that peace. It was cowardice. I am sorry, Dad. I read it 3 times, then folded it and placed it in Grandma's old recipe box, not because it healed everything. Because it belonged with the other papers that told the truth. My mother sent nothing. That was answer enough. For a while, I thought keeping the farmhouse meant I had to preserve it exactly as it was. The same curtains. The same furniture that remained. The same room names. But houses are not museums unless we trap them. Grandma had not protected that place so it could sit frozen in the year she died. She had protected it so someone with sense could decide what love looked like next. The idea for Evelyn House came from a phone call with another woman in my unit, Staff Sergeant Mina Alvarez, who had separated from her husband during deployment and came home to find he had emptied their apartment. She spent 3 nights in her car before anyone knew. When she told me, she laughed like it was a joke because servicewomen learned to make suffering sound efficient. I thought about all the women I knew who could coordinate supply convoys, repair generators, calm panicked soldiers, and still have nowhere safe to sleep when family turned cruel. I thought about the little room over the back porch. I thought about the empty bedrooms. I thought about the maple tree. Then I called Mara. What would it take to turn a farmhouse into transitional housing? She sighed. You never choose simple revenge, do you? No. Good. Simple revenge wastes property. We built the plan slowly. Grants, insurance, zoning, fire inspections. New locks, a new roof, donated appliances, a ramp for the front porch, trauma-informed policies, a resident agreement that treated women like adults instead of charity cases. Evelyn House would offer short-term housing, help with paperwork, job placement connections, legal referrals, and most importantly, a door that opened without a family member deciding whether they deserved space. The first time I painted over my parents' bedroom walls, I expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, I felt quiet. The old beige disappeared under soft blue. Grant's room became an office with a printer, file-fine cabinets, and a whiteboard where residents could list goals. My tiny porch room became exactly what I always needed as a child. A reading room with warm lamps, blankets, and a sign on the wall that said, "You are not too much." Mrs. Dillard brought over biscuits on the first volunteer day. My commander brought 3 soldiers with tool belts. Mara brought legal forms and a label maker. The house filled with people who had never sat at my family's table and somehow understood belonging better than anyone who had. On opening day, I stood in the front hall with the brass key Grandma used to keep on a hook by the pantry. It no longer opened the new locks, but I tied it to a ribbon and hung it beside her letter. Symbols matter when they point to something real. My father came that day. I did not invite him to the ceremony, but I allowed him to stop by before it began. He stood on the porch looking at the new sign, Evelyn House. He touched the railing he had once let rot. She would have liked this. He said, "Yes, I'm proud of you." The old me would have lived a month on those 5 words. The woman I had become simply nodded. "Thank you," I said. "I am too," he cried then. Quietly, I let him. I did not move to comfort him. That was new for me. I could witness someone's regret without making it my responsibility. He left before the guests arrived. My mother did not come. Grant sent one message from a number I did not recognize. "Hope the charity act makes you feel better." I deleted it. It did, actually. Not because it was an act. Because it was the first use of that house in decades that did not orbit his need. The night Hallie arrived, snow had started falling. We had eaten dinner, washed dishes, and were packing leftovers when the porch camera chimed. On the screen was a young woman in an old field jacket, shoulders hunched against the cold, backpack hanging from one hand. She looked like someone trying to decide whether a porch light was invitation or trap. I opened the door myself. "Is this Evelyn House?" she asked. "Yes." I called the veterans line. They said maybe you had space. I looked back at the empty chair at the table. "We do." She stepped inside slowly, eyes scanning for danger the way I knew too well. I gave her something practical before anything sentimental. "Bathroom is down the hall," I said. "Kitchen is warm. You can eat first or sleep first." Her mouth trembled. "I don't have money tonight." I shook my head. "Tonight, you have a chair." That was the moment the farmhouse became more than protected property. It became an answer. In the months after Evelyn House opened, I learned that taking back a home is not a single dramatic moment. It is the quiet work that comes after the police leave and the court files close. It is changing smoke detector batteries. It is buying extra towels. It is learning which resident likes coffee strong and which child cannot sleep without a nightlight. It is discovering that justice is not only what happens to the people who hurt you. Justice is also what you build when they no longer control your hands. Sometimes women who stayed at Evelyn House asked whether I missed my family. I always told the truth. I missed the family I kept trying to earn. I did not miss the one that forged my name. Those are not the same thing. Missing a dream does not mean you should reopen the door to the people who used it as bait. On the anniversary of the failed closing, I went to the county recorder's office alone. I stood at the same counter where the fake paper had once almost rewritten my life, and I requested a fresh certified copy of the deed. The clerk handed it to me warm from the printer. There was my name, clear and official. No forgery, no false authority, no father signing for me, just Lena Whitaker, owner. I took that copy back to Evelyn House and placed it in a frame beside Grandma's letter, not to worship ownership, but to honor protection. That house had been a battlefield, then evidence, then shelter. It had become what my family never imagined it could be. Proof that a daughter they underestimated could guard a promise better than all of them combined. So if you have stayed with me this long, please like this video and subscribe to She Chose Herself. Share it with someone whose family calls them selfish for protecting the one thing they built, earned, inherited, or saved. Sometimes the thing they want you to surrender is not just property. Sometimes it is the last proof that someone believed you mattered. My family sold my childhood home while I was deployed. They forged my name, rehearsed their excuses, and sat at a closing table ready to spend the money. But they forgot my name was still on the deed. More than that, they forgot who taught me to read one. And when I walked into that room in uniform, carrying Grandma's paper and the truth they thought distance had buried, I did not just stop a sale. I took back the promise. I took back the house. And I finally understood that home is not the place where everyone gets to come in because they share your blood. Home is the place the door opens only for people who know what your name is worth.